Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and Rich Lopp here for the Awakening Experience. We went off our traditional script of the cards today because there's so much going on and how to stay with this higher frequency and vibration through these end time energies. How's it going, Rich?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Doing good too. It's at the same time, it's been a struggle, of course. This is a crazy world we're in. We're all working as hard as we can to do the light work, while at the same time, whether it's raising our families, also taking care of our independent soul and self, and then you're dealing in a world that seems more chaotic by the hour now, not just the days. So, I think if I didn't have this work, I would be fucking lost, which I think is kind of the reason why we're here tonight to talk about these things, because it's already difficult enough as a light worker to stay on top. I couldn't imagine somebody who really, I don't know, didn't have anywhere to go with it or couldn't maybe process it all correctly. And if there is really a correct way, I don't know. How do you feel?
I mean, I don't know if, when it comes to times like this, it's not really, I don't think, a correct way or an incorrect way, other than monitoring your vibration is so important. And in times like this, your superpower is your focus. That's your superpower, because obviously the way they have gone about manipulating the masses for so long is they program you what to focus on. They have us so programmed to focus on drama, negativity, conflict, anything negative, anything that can get you worked up emotionally. They have humans programmed like sheep to just get drawn into it and sucked right into it. And clients ask me, one of the most frequently asked questions that I get from clients when they're asking about manifestation advice is, what should I focus on? And usually, in a vast majority of cases, I'll tell them, don't drive yourself too crazy trying to figure out what to focus on. Pay attention to what you should stop focusing on. That's just as important. Learning to control your focus and focusing on things that raise your vibration and, your goals and success. And that's really important too. But equally, your ability to be able to say, I'm not focusing on that. That's lowering my vibe. Once you start understanding how your vibration works, you start getting real sensitive to how things affect you vibrationally, whether it's music, movies, and you start developing this bullshit-o-meter that almost immediately starts ringing alarm bells whenever low vibrational shit is trying to make its way into your ears. And you'll be able to be like, now I'm not paying attention to that. I'm not focusing on that, and tune off and tune away from it.
Yeah.
And in a world where everybody is so addicted to drama, if you start adapting that mindset, people look at you like you got a fucking dick growing out of your forehead or something. You know what I'm saying?
Puts a whole new term to Pinocchio. But I think 100% you're right. The energy of where you focus your energy is going to be, I think, tested more than ever. I look back, if we're going to do comparisons of what's happened this last weekend, and then looking at just even, it's going to be coming up 4 years ago now, this whole idea of the COVID thing, right? Look at how many people got lost with their focus on that. This is that 10 times element now of where so much of it is to pull you on a side.
Yeah.
And I feel like whenever you get pulled too much on a side, or you demonize a side or take a side, right? Like that's where I'm going to use some really weird manifestation technique that actually comes from George Washington. And his farewell address, he wrote and he spoke to the people, and he said, as a country of freedom individuals, right? Because that's what America was. And he was the first president, so his last words, his farewell address, was to always remain neutral. Don't take allies, because if you stay, what happens if they do something bad? Don't start picking and choosing what are the best things for you and the right people, because 10 years could go by, 50 years could go by, and they could go against you or whatever, right? And so I think when we're observing energies right now, it's already hard enough to just say, I'm fully disconnected, but there is an energy within you that can stay neutral and be like, let me see how this is playing out, and let me gather all the information. The same we do in our own manifestation, right? It's like, I want to manifest, let's say, some sort of job or something, and it's like, oh, some info coming that people are saying that the job market's bad. And then there's proof.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let me take a second here and make sure that now I'm not directing my whole entire focus and thoughts into just that. And let me also stay in that place where I've put what I need to go out there, and let me keep being neutral and receiving when the energy is to take that power and go with it, opposed to, it feels like a fisher right now throwing a reel, and just imagine a boat trolling like 7 billion rods to all pull and make it look like, and you know, and to this is also like an energy harvest happening at the same time too, again, but on a higher scale. We've already been through many of them, but this one of course rings different because it's gotten so personal, and there is horrible things that are happening to human beings. And I think as light workers, it's about the collective. It isn't about your race, your religion, or anything. And so I think what's hard during these times is when people start getting a little too conspiratorial and forgetting we're all people. And it's not like you, me, or anybody watching this has some sort of lever on these more deeper, darker control system governments around the world or groups. And it's really easy to pick an enemy out when the real enemy is not seen always.
Yeah.
And, or we become our worst enemy in ourselves too, in our mind, and not being in the right energy, you know? Yeah,
that's the way it works, because, and they've been doing this for so many decades now. Like, and when we were talking off camera a minute ago, that example that you gave, somebody got into a wreck 1,000 miles away and got killed by a drunk driver, and this, that, the third, and the other thing, and people get so wrapped up about it. And if you say, I'm not worried about that, now you're a bad person. When they don't understand the bigger picture, you are lowering your vibration because of something that you have no control of. So it's like people are calling out for a false sense of virtue. I must lower my vibration over this thing that happened that I have no control of, and that demonstrates that I am a good person. I'm a good person because I am lowering my frequency, because I'm feeling anger, because I'm feeling the sadness. I'm a good person now. There's nothing you can do about it. Your low vibration, your anger, your sadness, your empathy is not going to fix it. All it's going to do is lower your vibration, and it's going to turn you into a magnet to low vibrational shit in your life. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And getting people to understand that giving yourself permission to not lower your vibration because of something that you have no control of does not make you a bad person.
No,
you see what I'm saying? And,
no, I know.
Yeah, and they have people so wrapped up in these emotionally manipulative, guilt-tripping scenarios where, you know, if I choose not to empathize with something that's 3,000 miles away that I have no control of, I'm a bad person because I'm keeping my vibration high. I'm not allowing myself to be turned into a low vibrational magnet. I think that's one of the hardest things about light work, true light work. Because you see so many light workers out here are advocating for that type of thing, love and light, but then they advocate for you to feel, to create these low vibrational states within your own mind, as if it turns you into a good person just because you feel empathy for something you have no control of. And because of that, I think we're headed into a point to wrap up 2023 and going into 2024 where the real light workers are going to be standing alone, because all the people who are in this line of work, who are in it for the wrong reasons, are going to fall off.
Yeah. Well, because I love how you just brought up, like, something could be happening so far away and people can make judgments really quick. But you also see that there is this energy that's trying to create people to pick a side, but also that means to hate another side. So if we're really the collective here, of course, if anybody, it's beyond just anti-Semitism. Like, I see all these people being like, oh, well, Israel deserves it because they're Zionists. And it's like, that is not, these people are just loving people all over the world. And then again, then you sit on the other side. These are Muslim extremists. They all need to be taken out. It's the same thing on both sides, right? It's like, oh my God, these are Zionists. Oh my God, these are these people do this to the world. These people control the oil. It's always the same thing, right? It's like giving all these negative powers to these people that they're above you too, right? Like, yeah. And it's horrible. We've seen, this is what happens in the world, right? It becomes the manifestation of the collective to create these scenarios. People don't see that though,
yeah.
Right? Like, these dark entities will do dirty shit, and it's not about not having that understanding. It's more about understanding it, and also at the same time, of course, it's horrific on both sides and on every situation. But we also need to gather what's going on. I mean, whenever you or maybe I or anybody out there, right, gets a client, it's not like the second that we're going into what their issues are, I'm taking that as their full issue right away. I always have to dig deeper. I always have to hold on, what's really going behind, and that's where Carl Jung's work, for basic example, will be like the shadow, right? Like, we always want to prop up the thing that we feel our problem is or what we're emotional about. But, you know, as light workers, whenever we get to the bottom of it, it's like always that one place that you don't want to talk about, or that one place that you didn't want to look at, or that way. So right now, people are not looking at the places they don't want to fully look. Some are, of course. But then again, it's like, you're not going to have that. If you give too much of it into that too, you got to look out for yourself, your own energy first too. And that's where it's very difficult, because it's really easy right now to get lost in creating an identity off something that's not yours. I think that's probably the scariest place I'm seeing right now, is it creates mass migration towards, you know, a solitary, like, solutional element of another side being at the cost of it. And we don't want to go through that repeat. I mean, if we're really going to go on a different timeline, as we've been talking about, and many's have for so long, but we're right there where there isn't, there's, like you said, there's not a lot of time left. And as we're coming into the end of this year, how many light workers are going to still be around to do it? Because whether it's economic, or whether it's war, or whether it's the possible drafting of people, which is already starting to be part of this whole thing. And I know it's not about being scared. It's about taking the information, being informed, and what you do with that. There's always a way to manifest your way in the right direction. And that's, I think, the harder part, because of course, when it's very sensitive times, people take things the wrong way. People love to then cast you out. Yeah. Right. And as a light worker, you have to hold the light no matter what. Even if it's a dark day and nobody's around, you still have to be that lighthouse that's still holding the light. And that makes it, I think, scary for people to feel. Or, of course, when it comes here, that's a different story. It's a little bit different for somebody that's living in Israel or Gaza, right? Because it's at their front door, literally. It's in their face. It's their neighbor. It's whatever. These atrocities happening. But when it comes to your own door, how do you handle that frequency-wise? That's when, so I don't think it's, you know, the easiest for somebody to just make the judgments when it's not on their door either. you know? Like
Yeah.
when it's on your door, it's a little different, right? If something happens at my house, in my own backyard, and the shit that's happening, right? For somebody super far away to start telling me I'm doing something wrong, I'm manifesting wrong, you're a bad person or whatever, it's like, you weren't in this scenario. You don't know what I'm feeling. You don't know what I'm doing. But I think that, you know, maybe there's that other part where the lightworker community also like doesn't want to get involved and always fully disconnects, where I think, and maybe I might differ with people, I feel like I always want to see what's happening to try and read between the lines fully. Mm-hmm. And then also take a step back and remember that we're all about all of us together as a collective to come together and not start pointing and choosing. And especially when it gets to that place, which is beyond anti-Semitism for me, but because whether somebody's Muslim or whether somebody's a Jew, it's not about those things. And then people connecting way too much on top of those things. And it becomes this tower of manifestation of this like dark thing that's on good light working people. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing to say though, because people can always try and read that the wrong way. You know, it'll even replay it.
Well, I mean, and another way to look at it too is that the people who are in that place, if you really want to step away from the whole game and look at it from a large perspective, the people over there who have that at their door from a spiritual perspective, they're going through that for some kind of reason. They agreed to come here and experience something. I don't know if they're paying off some karma, or maybe some of them just wanted to come and experience that for whatever reason. But we don't want to judge what anybody's going through in their spiritual path.
Right.
And how you mentioned about, you know, shining the light and being able to navigate your way through certain experiences and whatnot. Here's one of the things I learned in Mind Mastery School. The universe behaves like water. If you ever want to, you know, draw a picture in your mind of the events that unfold and your life experiences and just your daily life experience in general, everything behaves like water. It lifts those up who make themselves light and drowns those who make themselves heavy. If you can maintain a higher vibration for a long enough period of time, you'll float right around the obstacles. It might look scary. It might look like something bad's about to happen, but at the end of the day, you'll float right around it. You'll float right over it. The universe will just take you and carry you around all the bullshit and through all the craziness and maintaining that high vibration and that trust. But my advice is be ready, but don't live in fear. Like I've told you, I have a lockbox full of gold and silver. I have 6 months worth of food and water stacked up, emergency food and water. I have a little RV camper, a pickup truck, weapons with ammunition. I'm ready, but I'm not scared. I'm not keeping myself in a vibration of, you know, playing that timeline over in my mind and what it's going to be like and how scary it's going to be and this and that. If that's the timeline the universe takes me to, I'm trusting that it took me to that timeline for a reason, but I'm not going to sit and focus on it. Maintaining a high vibration, and as a light worker, I believe that it's your responsibility to keep people as uplifted as possible. If there's so many people out here loving light, and they promote fear, and they're pumping fear porn out there because they're in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it for clicks, views, money, and popularity. And we're coming into a point that if you are in this line of work and you're here assuming the position of somebody in the spiritual community who's here to help people, guide people, and you're in it for the wrong reasons, and you're pumping fear to keep your views up, and conflict and negativity to keep views and popularity and money coming in, you're going to crash. I don't think you'll make it through 2024 if you're not lifting people up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I think of the light workers, it's really a very sensitive subject, but at the same time, you can't be afraid to speak truth. We're dealing in a religious battle. Mm-hmm. It's religious.
Yeah.
Now we have the freedom of religion in this whole experience. But what's weird is the cycles that we go through. So of course there's rhetoric going right now, especially in America, like just go into war and destroy the other side fully, because that'll be the war that'll end wars. There's no such thing as a war that you don't end atrocity by going into it's just like if you were in a fight with somebody, like I'm going to put them out fully so I don't have to deal with them again. I'm going to put their neck on the floor, and I'm going to fucking, ooh. And what's really weird is the big shadow that's being cast over all of this that doesn't want to be looked at this is over religion. Mm-hmm. And when it gets to that, and we're in this new idea of a new earth and so forth, the idea of religion is something that terrifies people, because if it's lost, or if it's not true, or if it's, more importantly, been programmed so much, or the worst part about it too is it's like the shadow is that, we associate, when you look at somebody, more about their religion than just who they are as a person, right? It's like we've gone through racial divisions for so long. We've seen people that in World War II, for example, based off their religion, like the Jews, were thrown into concentration camps. It's weird because when you're now in this new age spiritual community, we don't have anywhere to attach to. Is that a bad thing? Because like that's the interesting part is you brought up like you have stuff in case something happens. I mean, it's the same as me as a dad right now. Like, of course I got the dad bag with wipes and diapers, just in case we're out with her and she poops, she pees.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you look at it.
Yeah.
But I think that shadow part is so big now, of the thousands of years of controversy over a plot of land, an area that literally has been about what side has the right religion and the right history to it and all that. And that divisiveness that has been going on for thousands of years has manifested this is the volcano just starting to go bloop. And what we're going to witness over this next year is a full volcanic eruption. Whether or not you're going to just sit there and watch it and stay watching it and get caught underneath it, or start choosing sides, because then you're choosing a religious side. Of course, we have to be on top of that, where we're supporting humanity, where it's like, what has happened is horrible. And it puts it into a place we've never been before. We've never been in a space to where the religious wars have gotten out of control to a point to where it's now extreme. And this is just the beginning. And you still have to, as a light worker, love all people without being looked at as if you were being an anti-Semist, because you're only an anti-Semist, in my opinion, when you start saying these people are the problem. And they need to be taken away and eradicated. That's what it is. Or that they control the world. Nobody controls the world. That's the biggest fucking lie ever told.
Yeah.
That's the biggest lie ever told, right? Like, oh my gosh, look at the Muslims, they're controlling the world, and all the Jews, they control the world. It's like the same story being thrown in different ways. Like, that is not what's happening. What's happening is the minds of the collective and being swayed to think these things, to then cause more destruction, and then to think the opposite on the other side to cause more destruction. And now it's just getting to a point to where, how do you be in that neutral space while still helping the collective and being focused on your gifts, your talents of how to help when those assistants are needed, and also not forcing yourself. You don't go up to somebody at a mall and be like, I need to tell you, you're going to go through this, right? Like, knowing when it comes to you, right? So I feel like a lot of people right now are getting prepared for whatever's about to come, in a space of where we're going to be showing up when it's necessary and needed. You don't want to go over and shoot over the board and start running, and it's like the Knight of Swords to me, and how he's just like ready to just fucking burning building, let's fucking go, and just just be erratic and just fucking go in. You know what I mean? Like, This is definitely more of a moment where it's like a pause to really reflect, to understand where's my energy going. And also remembering that this is cycles and that this is another part of the secrets of the universe. Like cycles happen. Mm-hmm. We're seeing the same cycles of World War II happen right now. We're seeing the same cycles of the Revolutionary War happen right now. We're seeing the same cycles of the Civil War all at the same time. You mix all those together and what do you get? Underneath all of it, it's based off this idea of who represents God better.
Yeah.
And lightworkers, it's not about a religion. It's not about, we're all going to start creating an organization of who's the top light worker and what are the ones that are, you know what I mean? And where we congregate at and what that looks like. And those are more important than where other spiritual people congregate, because that's what you're seeing in this matter is whether it's a mosque or it's another place, right? These are the places that are more sacred than those places. This temple is more important than that mosque, and that mosque is more important than that temple. Mm-hmm. And it's hard because nobody's going to talk about that. Everybody's going to say no, because whether it's the media, they're going to have to pick the side the country's on. When a country picks a religion, when especially in America, it's freedom of religion.
Yeah.
That's one thing that, we have to remember as America especially. You can't even say the UK because they have the Church of England. And the king is the head of the Church of England now. So, when you start to see the problem with religion and countries and connection, there's always going to be a problem. And so that's one of the things that people are not really looking at the same time too, with also having empathy for all people of religion. It becomes difficult, and then what do you think happens? You get this country that's part of a similar version of being in Islam, and this one that's similar, but you know what? At the end of the day, even though we're divided in different tribes, we're going to come together because it's about that religion. And then guess what? Now it's on this side. Well, we're Christians, and that's part of the Bible is the Jewish history and so forth, and Jesus was a Jew. So everybody go on that side now and defend that side. And this is not looking good. But I think that part of the deepest light work to do right now is to talk about these things and not be afraid to, without being negative and without being an anti-Semite, because there's no anybody who's going into that, you're already being caught up into a conspiracy. That's the conspiracy, is like, this is the moment where they want their fighters. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you're at with this.
Well, where I'm at with it is kind of like what we talked about during the event. And we talked about it off camera a minute ago. Now, like you said, we're repeating cycles of this war and repeating the cycles of this. But now the difference is we can see it all. We can see it all. We're not just being like forced fed one side of the story. Now, like I said, I had a feeling, and my feeling, it's starting to feel like it's proving to be true, that this next cycle that we're going to go into, as opposed to 2020, where they're shutting off one side and forcing one side of the story in your face, now you get to see it all. And when it comes to something like war, because all of the wars that we've ever been through have been started and funded by the same source. It's all been started and done on purpose. But depending on where you are, you see one side of it. And like you said, people are picking a side. I want to pick this side. Now, we're coming into a time where all of it is going to be available at your fingertips. All the information on both sides of the story will be there for anybody to pick. And sure, there's probably going to be people that maybe pick this side and then this one. But at some point, eventually, people are going to step back and be like, whoa, maybe this whole thing is fucked up. And then drop it. See, this is how they've been manipulating us into manifesting for them for so long. And then the minute 8 billion people step away and say, I don't want nothing to do with any of that, that's when it all fades away.
But that's going to be where I think the programming has been there's layers of programming. And so like what we saw in 2020 is just like a top layer that's a pretty big one, but underneath was so many other layers, you know, like it was already given to you as a kid, like wash your hands, to, you know what I mean? Like only be this close to the people that, you know, like you love, but really always stay, look at that stranger, you know, before you go on a date, make sure you do that. Like all these like programs. But the main program though is, this is the end of the age of Pisces. And Pisces deals with religion, and it deals with spiritual religion and which is
manipulation.
the more, right. And also manipulation and secrets and hidden elements, right? So my truth to people, and why I'm going to be doing Battle of the Gods Part 2 on Friday, but my truth to people, and this isn't some secret, but it's like, what do you think at the end of Pisces is going to happen if you pick a side of a religious side? It's going to be the annihilation of each other. They're going to go annihilate each other. No matter how much you think your side's going to win, or that, you know, Allah's going to win, or God's going to win, or this version of God or that version of God, it's going to be horrible. And I think that's going to be the hardest program for people to let go of. When you say that 8 billion people doing, I'm over this, it gets so deeply embedded in people.
Well, yeah, it's
like, well, my Bible, or, you know, the Quran, or, you know, this is
going to be a process,
right? And then there's more than just two religions, but you know, there's the connection to Christianity with Judaism, right? And then when you go into Islam, what's the irony of astrology is it's connected to all of them, including over in Hinduism, including, if it wasn't for people in the Middle East, we would not have astrology for the dark times that were from 500 to 800 AD. But, you know, like Mesopotamia, going back, like we can go into every place with astrology or spiritual tools. And it's like, it's not like we're all sitting here practicing, you know, what the Maya did, right? It's like, well, the Mayan calendar, or the Maya, right? Like it wasn't like it was a religion as much as it was a spiritual lifestyle, and being free and not requiring you to be this certain way and indoctrinated into some sort of system. You know, like there was the ability for you to be flexible and free in it. Right now, I think what we're seeing is the strangulation of the idea of religion today, and how it has really just been a complete chokehold. And it has been intentionally chokeholded you to be against the other side when it comes down to it, which we're at. I don't think it's funny when you start to see the candidates for president, whether it's Mike Pence, and every fucking debate, he's just like, when I put my hand on that Bible on January 20th of 2017, I made a commitment not to this country, but to Almighty Jesus Christ and God, right? It's like, oh, okay. Like, you know, it's like, we're starting to get that. And then you're seeing all these people in the streets now supporting Palestine and saying it's right for them to go and kill a bunch of Jews.
Yeah.
It becomes this place to where it's like, whoa. Nobody in the mainstream media is having the conversation about religion.
Yeah.
You know, and REM did it best, like losing my religion. I just think, you know, that's hard though, because that's the hardest thing for people to, you know, their traditions are done. Their clothing is done by it. And what does religion do? You know how you program somebody is you literally do a ritual that you force people. If you go to the Catholic Church, guess what happens? Sit up, sit down, kneel down, sit down, head up. You go into fucking Islam, guess what? Sunset, everybody's fucking, get on your knees. And it becomes repetition. Just like going to work out. But even when you don't want to work out, right? You energetically are still making a choice because you're doing something. This becomes to where it's like, well, if I don't do it, then my community won't like me. Then I won't be accepted, or I might not go to the right place.
Yeah.
So now we're in a fucking gnarly battle over who's the right God and who has the right place for that God.
Yeah, and with the, like you were saying a minute ago, that it's not with the light workers, it's not this religion, that religion. What we're getting to a point now where it's light or dark, and there's not one that's better than the other. There's high vibration or low vibration. Love, abundance, and happiness, or fear, anger, and misery. And hey, one is not better than the other, but it's getting to a point where it's going to be like, you're going on this timeline or this one, whichever one you choose. You know, there's those of us who are here to help the people that want to take the higher timeline. I think there's more, honestly, that want to take the higher timeline, because that's what we came here to do. We came here to see if we could do something that's never been done before. Take a planet and move it into a different dimension. That's what we're doing. That's all of us who are here doing this light work are trying to move the planet Earth into a different dimension. So we have tug of war happening on the planet right now. The low vibrations and the high vibrations are tugging at it. So it's not this religion or that religion. It's high vibration and a true connection to the divine, or low vibration and separating further and further away from the divine. And soon it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, Dolores Cannon, when she was talking about this new Earth, she specifically mentioned that the old Earth and the old timeline will be full of wars. Mm-hmm. That was her main thing. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like we're all passengers right now on the train to the new Earth, watching what's happening. And right now they stop the train and they're like, anybody want to get off?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Do you want to go through, because we live in a generation where the people that were part of World War II most of them are gone now. Mm-hmm. Right? So now you're starting to see the buildup of it happen again. So it reminds me of a theme park. Anybody want to get off this to the new Earth and go experience and then they sell it as like the badass ride of the most destructive, crazy world and war that you've ever seen? Mm-hmm. Do you want to get off? And they've got it to where they're alerting everybody's phones. Everybody was so afraid of the 5G.
Yeah.
Yet the irony of that whole alert system was about this.
Yeah.
Wake up, red alert, and about informing you, right? And what has been the common thing, whether it was Maui, nobody got a warning on their phone. What happened just in Israel? Nobody got a warning. These people just started flying in, these Palestinians, these Hamas people just started coming in from land, air, and sea. And the last time land, air, and sea was used in a major term was World War II. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's like everybody's like, it reminds me of being at Disneyland and being on the railroad that goes around all Disneyland. And you want to go into Frontierland, you want to go to Adventureland, you want to go into, Tomorrowland right now. And it's just like, do I want to go down these old patterns? No. Do I want to be on that timeline? Because it's really easy to get sucked in right now. I've never seen it. It makes the COVID suck in look like nothing, what I'm seeing now in the last 2 days. When you start to see the idea also, which is create division, find now something in one part of the world that looks like we're all together, left and right. But which remember, on the other side, in the Middle East, there are two versions of Islam. There are the left and right there. Mm-hmm. And now you're finding the common denominator for them. So both sides can't see that their left and right divisions are coming together. And now this side can't see that their left and right versions are coming together. And now they all meet thinking, we're so united. When really all it was is, all right, let's get rid of these divisions, create the uniteness, and have both of those slam into each other and see what happens. Just like the Hydrogen Collider. What do you think's been happening with that? They're doing the same thing. Let's smash everybody on this side of the world into one atom, and let's jam everybody in this side of one atom, and let's fucking throw them around at supersonic speed and fucking in a chamber, and then they're not even realizing until the last second, I'm right in front of you, boom, and create fucking an explosion. And that's what's happening right now. Is like, whether you go to CNN or you go to Fox News, when you go down to every comment, most of the people on the left and on the right are all like, no, yeah, it's fucked up. Blah, blah, blah. Which I agree. But it doesn't mean that, we have to go down this timeline, and that are we going to start having light workers have conscious conversations about the religious aspect, and there is a different timeline we can go down. But again, you're going to get looked at as a horrible person, and you can't be afraid of that. Mm-hmm. Because this is different than trying to be Kanye or Ye and just be like, oh yeah, Jews run the world, and be an anti-Semite. That's not what this is about. That is horrible. Like that's what makes him uncredible. Right? Because again, he's giving his power away and putting a negative connotation to a group of people. Mm-hmm. And whenever you start to put a group of people based off religion or race as a superior one or an inferior one, you're caught up in the same trap.
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime they have you saying these people, Mm-hmm. They've been playing that game for so long. You know how they've been creating all this racial division over the past few years. You know, white people. You know how many people I've heard say that white people need to pay for what they did 200 years ago, and that would be kind of like saying, okay, so if it works that way, you mean to tell me that 4 years ago a group of Asians robbed a bank? So does that mean Asians need to pay for what those Asians did? You know,
Right.
The people being killed right now, these people, they're innocent. They didn't do anything.
Nothing.
The people in Israel or whatever,
Yeah.
it wasn't those people who are bad people. And I think that's what people are starting to wake up to now. Because like we were saying a minute ago, it's going to be a process. It's not just going to they're going to wake up one day and be like, oh, this is stupid. It's kind of like back in the beginning of 2020 with COVID, the way there was some of us who were trying to tell people, look, they're creating division. They're getting us fighting with each other. And that was so taboo back then. But
Right.
now it's common sense.
Right.
After 4 fucking years.
It's 4
Well, something
years.
like this may be really sensitive to talk about now, but 4 years from now, it probably won't be that sensitive. Because like I said, I think that we're going to come into a time where it's going to get so crazy and so nuts, but you're going to be able to see all of it. All
Sure.
the information from this side, from that side, from this person. There will be no censorship. So enough of a process is going to be it's going to be a very controlled crash of the old system. Very controlled. So that the few people who are still stuck in that programming are going to have access to the information from this side or that side. And I think it's going to run its course in such a way that it's going to give as many people as possible the chance to open their eyes. Because, you know, we don't have to awaken the whole planet. It's just a certain percentage. I think, if I remember correctly, all we really need to tip it all the way over into the new system is 72% of the population awake. That's all we need. Don't need 100% of it. But the thing is, like back 4 years ago, if you looked at all of the analytics of the data because there are people who are controlling the devices and whatnot,
Right.
and they can tell what the AI has studied you and knows where you are mentally. And they can look at the statistics and tell whether or not you're awake or if you're programmed. And by looking at all those statistics back 3 years ago, I think they said only 10% of the population was awakened by coming into, the middle of 2021 into 22. It wasn't very many, but it's been growing exponentially. So all we really need to do is get 72% of the population awake. And once people awaken and really understand what's going on, they'll slowly but surely start kind of backing away. It's not going to happen overnight. They're not just going to wake up, like you said, all the layers of programming, my Bible this, my Quran that. It's not going to happen overnight. Just like with the majority of the people who took the shot and fell for the bullshit. They didn't just wake up overnight. They slowly but surely started realizing, I might have fucked up a little bit. Yeah, I think I might have fucked up a little bit. And then they got quieter and quieter and quieter. And then they just kind of tucked their tails between their legs and just kind of snuck off and hid in a corner in shame. That's probably going to be something similar to that over an extended period of time, where eventually within the next 4 to 5 years, does that make sense? You see where I'm going with this?
Yes. So much so that I was in this place. 9/11 happened. I was a senior in high school. I had nowhere to go. 2002 came, I graduated. My buddy told me, I was smoking weed on the beach. I was with my dad. And my dad's like, what are you going to do with your life? He was a no pressure Aquarius on me. Like, whatever you want to do. Like, I just support you. Like, you don't have to go to school. You don't have to go to college. I couldn't go to college anyways because I didn't do the grades on purpose. I just wanted to get out of high school. That was it. Just like bare minimum. And my buddy was with us and we were smoking weed. Like, maybe I'm going to go to join the Navy. And they were pumping Navy commercials because 9/11 had happened. And I fucking went in and boom, they were the nicest people. And they're like, you're the water polo captain? You've been swimming your whole life? My God, the rescue swimming gives you the biggest bonus. you get treated not like a normal sailor. You get treated you work with the SEALs. You'll be in the third hardest, training program. I'm like, all right. And especially with what had happened in 9/11, I was totally like, fucking fuck these people out there in the world. Like, we're going to go fucking get our retribution. Even though there was no war really defined. I'm in boot camp. The only time you can be in boot camp is when right in the middle and right 3-4 weeks before graduating, we go to war in Afghanistan. Right? And I'm fucking in boot camp and it changes to fucking war boot camp. And it's like real as fuck. And even I remember being on the phone with my mom when you get the one call time a week on your calling card. And I remember my mom like, I'm scared. Like the Navy just is the one that just performed the whole bombings and shit on Afghanistan. That's when we put mission accomplished. And I went, yeah. So I'm in the military and go to my schools and end up working on F-18s, and those F-18s end up going to now Iraq at the time and start bombing in Iraq. And I had somebody send me loose change about 9/11, the truth about 9/11 when it finally started coming out, just a year and a half later. And I'm in the military, and it was like a secret. Like we're in the barracks, like, who's on watch tonight? Who's the command on watch? Who's fucking in charge tonight? Oh, it's fucking. We hate that guy, but he doesn't care. He's just going to he won't even check on us. All right, putting that DVD in and watching on a little 13-inch Magnavox the truth about 9/11 for the first video. And I literally kicked myself out of the Navy after that.
Oh, that's what it was?
Yeah, it was the whole loose change. Like I'm in a fucking, because to even go deeper, it was like, I worked in F-18s and I was in VFA 151, the Vigilantes, which are in Top Gun 2. They're the same, you can see the same logos and all that. And fucking one of my duties as a plane captain is not only pre and post flight, but it's cleaning the jets to moving the jets to the right place if an engine problem or whatever, and making sure that we launch for the pilots. But another one is when decals need to be removed and put on, whether that's who's the plane captain and the pilot, but also the big dick fest that started happening where every big decal that had a bomb on it was for the 1,000 pounds of ordnance dropped by that plane in Iraq. So I'm sitting there and the pilots are coming back like, you got to add another one to this plane. We just dropped another 1,000 pounds. And so I'm sitting there putting the fucking decal. And it's not a normal sticker. It's a fucking, for an F-18 Hornet. It's like paint / it's on, so Turco doesn't wash it away and shit. You worked in planes. You have to always wash the plane and shit. It just can't get dirty. So it's got to be able to stand all that. Plus going 700 plus miles an hour. It can't just fly out. It can't be a decal. And I'm sitting here thinking about this shit and I'm like, okay. And then I don't know if this is what the divine intervened me with, but I had not top secret clearance, but secret clearance to be able to look at the recordings that are on an F-18 for when they drop bombs, where the maps are, where all the guidance systems connect to. And one of the guys who was in AE said, you want to see some crazy shit? And he turned it on, and it's just, all it is seeing these people in Iraq having dinner in their home over fire and then watching the bomb take just these normal families out. And so I started using drugs again because I'm like, what the fuck? It took me a while to figure out why I started to, because at the time it just kind of felt like, well, I just want to have fun. I don't want to be at work anymore. I'm at work 12 hours a day. It's 12 on, 12 off in the military. But looking back, it's like, yeah, that's how I got kicked out. It was just all that info and realizing, and I don't want to be a part of the fucking problem. And so, I got very, very much, you want to talk about being fucking yelled at to the extreme, but more importantly, being villainized by my own country, being kicked out of the military and going to prison, and fucking, it's still to this day, if you were to go to NAS Lemoore and you're to say Airman Palmer, they know me. They use me as an example. Don't be like him, right?
That sounds like so
to get
many.
kicked out of the military is less than 1%.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's like I think 1,000 people a year get kicked out and go to prison. And fucking, I'll never forget that. My family was so disappointed in me. My friends, everybody I made friends with in the military.
Me and you were a lot alike.
You know,
that sounds like one of my stories.
Knowing when you're doing the right thing. And I remember coming out thinking, people are like, how are you going to live in life? How are you going to figure it out?
Yeah.
I did. And it wasn't as hard.
So you started doing drugs to numb feelings of guilt or whatever?
Yeah, and also just because I was terrified. I mean, going AWOL to get kicked out is not easy, and then intentionally popping your piss test to get out, and knowing that you're going to face up to 5 years in Leavenworth to possibly 10 during war, and especially going AWOL in the middle of war, is desertion. So 30 days of being gone as deserter, I would always cut it off to like 20 days. And then I had to make sure that the JAG lawyer I was working with was like, we need to make sure that you're not where they can charge you for deserter, where they'll put you in for 20 to 25 years in Leavenworth by if you've accumulated 30 days of AWOL. That'll make you start smoking weed and doing blow, doing alcohol to not deal with it at 19.
Have you ever made a video talking about that?
No.
That would be a very interesting piece of internet content. Just you telling that story.
I know. I have all the proof and the pictures and the shit. And you can talk to any of my family members in the military showing up at their fucking doors. All my family that are, when you join the military, you put 20 names, 20 families. Not just your own family, but your friends, their families, their addresses, their phone numbers. So when I was AWOL, they sent uniformed. I wasn't there, and I'm sure that they can't recall because none of them are in the military. I don't know if they sent, JAG lawyers or they sent whoever they sent, though. They sent literally military to all of my family. Where is he? Call him. Then that was when debit cards were just coming out, but that you could actually like transact with. I was flagged. My whole check systems, that's what it's called, was flagged. So if my credit card or my debit card went off or I pulled cash out at a bank, they would flag the authorities to find me. And I was rogue, hidden in Hollywood at one point on one of the guys I did this with on his brother's couch, smoking weed and hiding from the authorities. But it was not just the cops, it was the government. All because I knew
the truth about 9/11.
Yeah, and I wasn't wanting to be part of it. And then I found another secret out, and this is a true story. And when you're in boot camp, it doesn't matter where you go or what rank you are. And I was the number one rank. I was the leader in boot camp. There's no place where you can just be yourself. Like if anywhere you go, you have to be the way that the military is telling you to be. You're training to be in the United States Navy. There's only one place, and it's called the flag room. And it's for where they store the flags for whenever you're achieving things in boot camp, you'll get a flag. And so at the end, when you do your graduation, the amount of flags that you have, the more you look like you're a great division and that you're going to do good. And there's only 1 week of training. And so on the 5th week of all boot camp, all divisions must go do the mess hall, except for the top 6 in that division go to start getting ready for celebrations. That's going to be in the following 4 to 5 weeks. But in the flag room is the only room where an officer and an RDC cannot go in there. I don't know why there's this rule, but I guess it's the beginnings of like training those in leadership to learn that you can have your own place where you are in leadership and you are the one in control and nobody can just tell you what to do out of nowhere. In that flag room, I saw FTN. And I was like, I don't know what this is. And so there was somebody that was in the Navy that was working at Great Lakes who was like, that's fuck the Navy. I'm like, why is it on all these bunks from like the 1800s? And then why am I seeing it all around here? They're like, oh, they don't want people to know, but there's just a lot of people that come in and wake up and see the truth about the military and shit. So the secret code is FTN. And I saw it everywhere in there. Didn't think anything about it. Till one night, there's always a problem. There's always somebody that did something wrong. We woke up at 2 a.m. We end up in an old barracks from the 1800s. It's snowing outside. And my RDC's like, you're going to do push-ups until we see people throwing up in here. And I was the RPOC, the leader. RPOC Palmer, you're just going to sit and do the push-ups with everybody. And you should be encouraging for the people to start throwing up, right? And I'm the leader, so I had to do that. So after people started throwing up, the windows are fucking fogged out. It's fucking 4 a.m. We're going to have to get up in an hour anyway, so you might as well stay up. Got no sleep. Done fucking 1,000 push-ups. People are throwing up. My RDC walks out and goes, all right, RPOC, get him back in dressed lineup and take the next 10 minutes for everybody to get their breath and get them back out here and dress them out. So I'm like, all right, 10 minutes. And I'm looking in these old barracks and I start looking under the fucking bunks and it's FTN everywhere. They don't let anybody in those barracks anymore. They only use that as they do that to every division, I assume. Like, wake you up in the middle of the night, tell somebody did something wrong and fucking punish the shit out of you. But in that room, in the original barracks of Great Lakes in the 1800s was FTN, fuck the Navy. The people have been for so long. Now, whether those were draftees that were brought in, or anybody, but it was like there was all these little signals that I got at the beginning of boot camp, the signals that I got while I was in the military, and then also the way that it's like, you can get in trouble, but we have an out for you. Just be in this, it's called restriction. Be in these barracks where you go to work, you don't have to go to jail, but you're not allowed to leave this area, this house, restrictive, this barrack. So you're in jail, but you're not in jail, and you'll still get all your pay. So it's like they do everything they can to keep you indoctrinated without getting in full trouble, even though to me, working while having to be in jail is is double fucked. Right? So I went, no, I will take Leavenworth prison and not have to kill people or do whatever the fuck. That's how gnarly, that story can get way gnarlier. But to people right now, I think it's harder for them to see, as somebody myself who fell for it so quick, went in and had to get out and go to jail and go through massive amounts of hell to get free again in my life and start over. And also I could never go get a normal job because I have a fucking other than honorable discharge.
Well, that sounds like the story of a light worker. Sounds like everything lined up perfectly. Yeah. It's a good thing you couldn't go get a normal job, because what if you had? You see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, so many of those things line up similarly with my story. You know, and where I was pretty much put in the same position, where it sounds, based on what you say, like you were forced into a corner and pretty much had no choice but to find this line of work and pursue it. And I mean, my story sounds very similar. I've heard several other people tell a similar story, and that's what I tell a lot of clients that come to me who want to be light workers, who are trying to figure out how to do it. And I tell them, a lot of times, and unfortunately, a lot of clients come to me who aren't actually here on mission as a light worker, but that doesn't mean you can't do the work, you know? And people try to figure out what am I supposed to do? I'm like, look, if you're on mission, you don't need to figure it out. The universe will shove you into a corner and not leave you with a choice. So that's what that sounds like to me. Listen to that whole story. It sounds like every bit of the experience you had to go through in order to find this path and take it, you know?
Yeah, and I think it also goes to your story, like, why is this atrocity happening to somebody? Or like in my case, it felt like, why is this happening to me? Like, I thought I was joining and it was going to be this way, and now I'm having to go through the exact opposite, and my reputation be completely dismantled, and my family being so hurt. It's scary, you know? Like, my parents had to deal with the military fucking at their door, like, where's your son?
Yeah.
He's in trouble. And that's different. When you sign up for the military, you're no longer a United States citizen. You join and you're part of the UCMJ. So you have no more rights. That's why you don't see military members on Instagram and stuff talking all the time, right? You're not allowed to do that. People probably don't know that, though, because they're fucking stupid. Right? And I think like you don't see resistance of what's happening in the military because they're not allowed to. You don't have a voice. You'll get in trouble. And I know all the ways that they will fucking put you away and still make you stay in. That's how gnarly it is. And for anybody right now thinking it's just easy, take a side and just jump in. It's like, don't. Right now, one of my best friends that I joined with, he's in 20 years, just left on duty on a tour 3-4 weeks ago. His aircraft carrier is on its way to the Middle East right now. We have a full strike force division heading there right now. And when it's strike force, they don't tell you how many subs. They don't tell you, because that's all classified. So there could be 17 nuclear submarines under that right now. There's full battle class fucking destroyers, but there's the biggest aircraft carrier that we have, full of all F-18 Super Hornets, stocked to the 9 to take out a whole country in 2 sweeps. That's one of the secrets that we know as being an F-18 squadron is our squadrons combined with other squadrons on this boat can take out a whole country. Not alone the fucking subs and everything else going on. And all the frigates that have all the food and all extra ordnance. And then there's frigates that look like it has something, but it really doesn't, in case the military another military were to take us. No, we actually, the food's in that. It's all coordinated. And that's on its way. It arrives in the next 24 hours to the Middle East. And when they go fast, the ocean, it's slow. But that's why they're called nuclear carriers. It's not just because, there's nuclear weapons on it. It's because they're nuclear engines. And we are doing 40 knots, 37, 40 knots in the ocean in a boat that holds 5,000 people and that is bigger than a city. And it is storming its way there right now. And it's all the same reoccurrences of the same transits we were in when they started in 2005. We're in the same eclipse that's going to be this week as red alert, orange alert, terror alert. Did any terrorists actually bomb America after 9/11, supposedly, right? Nothing happened. So there's more fear, and now it's like that was a program. Now this is the next layer of eclipse program. But now there's the religious aspect. That's the sinker, and that's what it was always about.
Yeah. But now it's about undoing it and changing the narrative and taking that train of programming, the momentum that the dark side has had going down this track for so many years, and slowly turning it, because like I said, if you look back, I don't think they're going to do everything exactly the same, but if you take a look back, 2019, near the end of the year, they started kind of mentioning what was to come. And then once the clock struck 2020, they went full force. So if this right here, if you was to look at it like a pattern, they're just kind of teasing us, man, it's probably going to get crazy as fuck. 2024 is going to be nuts, man.
Well, yeah, especially when you have Iran that is saying that they gave the green light to Hamas and Hezbollah that have been attacking. You look at the oil price that's going to skyrocket, but more importantly, all the fiat currencies based upon our reserves in oil. It's the same that we used to have the gold reserves, and the reserve is down to 17 days, but it's 13 days is below what the reserve is. So if we get to 13 days worth of oil, then that means that the dollar crashes completely, like the same way it did with gold. So what do you think this is, right? Like, how do you start the new currency system?
Yeah.
What you're seeing right now, right? And then, of course, it becomes like, the writings on the wall of like, oh, look it's like, what was the one country that was left that they wanted to get? It was Iran, right? That's the one country that they've been trying to get. They got Afghanistan, they got Iraq, right? They took all the resources, they took all the oil. Halliburton was there. They took all the poppies, which what did that create? The heroin crisis. That created the opioid crisis. It was all from the poppy fields in Afghanistan. That's what created the pharmaceutical industry to be in that phase. So what are they going after now? That's the question. I'm not going to say I know the answer because I don't know. Why would they want to do this? Is it now religious, right? Like eradication of religion that's from another side that looks like it's the right side. That's what it feels more like to me. It feels like retribution to, we have to remember back in the same transits of 2020 are the same transits of the middle of the Holy War going bad. And what happened to the Christians was they went on their last crusade and lost profusely and got kicked out of the Holy Land, right? And that's when all the people from the Middle East won.
Yeah.
So it always feels like, whether you go into Masons and the Knights Templar and you go into these deep things, you know what it is? It's retribution. And the idea of Zion being in America on some religions, or the idea of keeping Zion alive, right? So again, it's all religious, but you have to remember that the war is on both sides. That's going back to this idea of holy war, right? And I think that, again, this is that whole age of Pisces thing playing out, the age of deception. That looks like that, you know, and that's what we're seeing already in the spiritual community that's more called truthers, not spiritual. They act spiritual, but they're all coming out now as like, no, it's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus, right? And they're on the right. And then on the left, it's like, there is no God.
Yeah.
Right? But again, their God is science. Their God is Pfizer. Their God is, you know, right? Hormones.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, again, another trap. This is bigger than that trap, though.
Yeah.
This is like another trap that's just become massively big. Of like, then you can see on the other side how they're like, what do you mean? We won the holy war then, but you now they look at Israel as like the West creating them and giving them their own sovereignty on their land as a horrible thing, right? So it's created a crisis that now is just for the people of Israel that are caught in the middle of, just in the same way the people of Palestine, the people of Iran are all caught in the middle of this big power play between these religious institutions.
Yeah, I think the end goal. Now, I don't know, when you were saying like, why would they want, you know, Iran or whatever? I'm not claiming to know every little answer. There's probably a lot of layers to it, but I think big picture, their number one goal right now is to crash the financial system. It's running into the ground.
Yeah, and who's going to be on that new digital coin? Jesus or Allah? Or, you know, an Israeli star.
Well,
that's where I'm getting at, is like that it's beyond the ideas of the controller WEF. It's a religious hidden war that again, it could be an Israel star with Christ, right? Because they're aligned in the Bible and they're aligned in their alliance there. Or is it Allah? And then you don't have to mention that there's the Hindus, and then there's India, right? And there's been that thing with Canada right now where Justin Trudeau accused India of killing one of the members of parliament. And so India is full rebuttal now, dispatched and said, you are not allowed to have any diplomat from Canada here anymore. So there's this huge battle of Canada and India right now. Then you have India, which has inside its own country, its own split of direct Hinduism, and then all the different Muslim traditions that are all intersecting in that weird thing. So then there's that. But that my issue is what I'm about to see is like this whole holy war that's going to start coming from the East and from the West of against Allah and Muslim, right? Because those are problems in Indonesia. Those are problems from a West point of view when you look at it, when you look in Hinduism and what's happening in India and the extremism there. Or if you go to China, they don't practice any of that, right?
Yeah.
You don't even, your God is President Xi.
Yeah.
Right? Literally. Like that's your God. Or in North Korea, same thing. Like there is no religion. You gotta be Kim Jong-un. So there's so many religions, but it's like, what are the main ones? It's kind of like social media. It's like Facebook and Instagram are together. It's like Christianity in Israel. And then it's like against YouTube and TikTok, like, and you know, like who's gonna win? And that's what's scary, is that people are gonna get lost into that.
How do we keep people's vibration high through this bullshit?
I think everybody's gonna have to find their own way to do it. Number one, no, I don't think that anybody has the way only, right? Because then again, that's kind of putting it back to the way that this religion's the way only and that religion's not.
Right.
But I would say that, you know, I would lose your religion. And even though that sounds so not spiritual, it's like, have your own connection with the divine on your own. Mm-hmm. There is no attachment to a country or an ideology or because of the way that you look or some sort of tradition, right? It's like, it's not like I'm going to try and convert my child to be an astrologer.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to force my child to be into crystals. I'm not going to force my child to be a tarot reader. Right?
Yeah.
My parents, hands off, I ended up at a Christian youth group because I wanted to go check out the chicks. It was a great place. On Wednesday nights, most chicks couldn't get out, but they could get out to go to youth group. But, you know, like, at the same time, I also went into that religion fully there.
Yeah.
So I think it's, to be honest with you, because of the Pisces energy at the end of the age and so forth, I mean, again, this is going to come back to whether we want to think of it from a Roman perspective in the fall of it, or you want to look at it from all these different timelines. You know, a lot of it is the idea that this is the supreme religion, and then that forms into groups, right? And even Hitler tried to do the same thing. He tried to recreate his own Christian SS religion, and then that's why he created the Hitler Youth, and they were all to disrupt all the churches to get people to then jump into the SS version of Nazi Christianity. So, like he had all the Hitler Youth going into all the churches and disrupting their own people when they were supposed to be all aligned, when they really weren't. But people don't know that history. So it's like, you know, the same thing with Russia. Look what, I know people think, well, Russia's the good guys. It's just like Putin's sitting there saying the same things that Hitler did. Look at these people. They do this, they do that. Look at the West, how they do things, right? Well, you could say the same about any place, right? It's like, how does somebody down the street from you that you don't know go and get in a drunk car accident and kill somebody? And it's like the emotional, you know, tolls now are becoming way higher for you to be part of the right side. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to be so emotionally invested in this side is wrong and this side is right and you're on our side or not. If you're not, you're with them and you're on this side and you are cast out. And that's where caste systems come from, but that's a whole nother thing. And that's ironic about California is just right before this happened, Newsom vetoed the caste system bill that was trying to be done, right? To get rid of caste systems, which you would think he's super liberal, that he would get rid of the idea of a caste system, especially for people that are in Indian origin, but he vetoed the bill.
Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know, man. I've heard that over the past few years, California actually turned red, if you look at the real numbers.
Right.
The real numbers, not the fake numbers, you know, that map that they put up on TV and show the whole country blue and like 3 red states. That's bullshit. Whole country's fucking red if you look at the real numbers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Don't you remember that I told you about it, and then I think I sent you the video where I asked Alexa, you know, was Gavin Newsom arrested?
Right.
Alexa said, yeah, he was arrested for, what did she say, trying to suffocate a 4-year-old with a pillow or something like that? And then I remember right around that time period,
Newsom, with a MyPillow.
Yeah. I remember right around that time period, Newsom went poof. And you didn't see him anywhere. Didn't see, because he was always up there talking and, you know, with
yeah, he
COVID.
disappeared for 3 weeks.
Poof, he disappeared.
After a booster shot. And then everybody was like, he's dead. They're trying to hide him. And then he came back like, oh, what do you mean? I was just, and then his wife posted on Twitter, can a human being just also have family issues they're dealing with and stuff like that too? That's what they tried to put it off at. But it's weird because since his comeback after that moment, now he's going to Republican debates and saying, yeah, Trump's the winner. I don't know why these guys are even trying.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He's been playing, and then he vetoed the trans bill, right? For parents. So everybody thought in California, and everybody was hitting me up like, you need to move because they're going to force you to identify your child if they want to be identified a certain way. He vetoed it.
Oh, wow.
And then this week, last week, he vetoed the caste system bill. And I was like, what is this guy doing? And then he's going to Republican debates and pumping Trump up and saying, I have no problem with Trump. He was a great president. He was nice to me. And then Trump's pumping up Newsom, saying, I have nothing bad to say about him, even though, yeah, I think Trump has a better place to say it because his son fucks his ex-wife and is engaged to her. So it's like, for Trump, it's kind of like, hey, my son's fucking her now, even though that's second.
What the fuck?
You know, sloppy seconds.
I didn't know all that shit was going down. Holy shit, what the fuck? Well, then, I mean, then that's got to make you question, like, Okay, is Newsom turning good, or
Do you know what his wife, you know what her original political side was when
Trump's
they
wife?
met? No, Newsom's
Newsom?
wife. She was a Republican.
Oh,
And then when she married Newsom, she became an independent. And so it's even said that she helps guide the lines for him. And then she's a documentary. She was an actress. And she did a lot of documentaries about things more on the left, but she stays in the middle. And now you're seeing Newsom move from far left to extreme middle to almost right to try and win the vote of people, right? And he's not talking shit on Trump people. He's not talking shit on even Trump. It's like really weird. And then he's like Biden's biggest advocate. So he's like playing both sides, right? The same way that you have to realize like who's playing both sides in this effort to try and destroy people in these countries that are being affected right now.
yeah. Huh. It's getting that's what I'm talking about. It's getting so fucking confusing. So confusing that trying to follow it, I think that if you really are on a spiritual path after a certain point, I mean, you try, because like we were talking off camera a minute ago, I mean, most of us know that when they say, look over here, it's because they're doing something over here. But now it's to the point where they tell you to look over here, and you look over here, and you can't tell what the fuck is going on.
Well, so the big thing that's out from all this is like in America, what have they been telling you to look at? The border,
yeah.
the border, the 7 million migrants. Then you get a Democrat mayor 2 weeks ago to stand up and say, New York will not deal with migration anymore. And if you're illegal, you're not allowed here, right? Just going against the whole liberal left new thing, right? We can't deal with it. Right before this attack happened, where was he? Mexico City. The New York mayor in Mexico City and going to go do a South American tour and find out, how do I fix this migration problem? Because we can't deal with these migrants anymore. What happens? The new thing. Don't look at the border anymore. Look over here in Israel, what's happened. Boom. Now,
okay.
The U.S. Homeland Security just says that today they caught another 3,000 Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS terrorists trying to come through the border. So they've got everybody panicked now of like, well, what was the last fucking 3 years of 7 million people, mainly men? And then everybody on Twitter is putting up all these videos that have been doing investigative reporting for the last year of like, I've seen millions of them come in. And who was all at the Palestinian rallies? Migrants that came from these countries, right? All dressed up in the same gears over there. I'm not trying to say that these are the people we need to watch out for, but the whole point is like, when they do this, they intentionally did the border to be the story, to get people to be like, anybody who's a migrant, don't trust. Anybody who's a migrant is a terrorist. When the actual backstory is in herd immunity, if you get a country that's fully vaccinated with that COVID-19 vaccine of mRNA, you can't get it. You need to have unvaccinated people. So how do you start bringing in unvaccinated people into the country is migration. So there's always the real reason, and then now a new reason to make it look like it's something else, to create now a panic and also to create a negative thing to hide what's going on, right? The other really weird part of the whole situation is in Israel, they were the most highly vaxxed country, that they were forced vaccinated there. 91 to 92%. So is it because there's been so many deaths that their own government chose to fund and help with this attack at the same time? These are questions that people won't talk about, too afraid to look at, because it's always going to be the new smoke show, right? Like you just said, look over here while this is... So everybody looked this weekend, oh my God, it was an invasion from the Hamas. And then, of course, there was all these other groups that started shooting off. And then, of course, there was oh my God, they went in, they killed people, but they also took prisoners with them, right? So if you think about the border situation, especially if you're in Texas, why would you do it in Texas, where California used to be the one place where I grew up and it was just like, there was no illegal immigration except through California. Now, they don't exist here. right? It's too expensive, or they just don't want to be here. For some reason, it's like, no, you know, you don't see illegal immigration. This isn't the state anymore, but it's Texas now, right?
Yeah.
And where's the eclipses going right through? This one this week goes through Texas, and the one in April goes through Texas. It makes a perfect X. And what do they name Twitter? X. What is fucking the symbol and all the understanding of X marks the spot? 2, even in Roman numerals, 10. That's when you get to the next thing, or 10 of swords, or 10 of this to get to the next level. That's the X, right? When we are X factor.
I was going to say, is that what you mean when you say X factor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they're going to make it to where they set everybody up in 2004 and 5 through the whole night after 9/11 about terrorism, and it's going to come into America, and they're going to get you at a movie theater. They used to use movie theaters, like they're going to bomb a movie theater. We got reports, and then they would put up on Fox News, and they would put up on CNN. They put up, President Bush is saying it's terror alert red this weekend, right? That's the worst one.
Yeah.
Like people were living not off the weather, which now you can't do now already with climate change, right? If you, oh my God, that the weather's so bad you will die, even though like, right? But now they're doing that. They're going to do that here in America. Like if you go to a grocery store, or you know what, we have reports that there are migrants in this area, and then it creates again, another humanitarian spiritual issue of I'm going to go look for somebody who looks like a migrant. I'm going to go look for somebody who looks a certain way. The same way that they tell everybody in Hamas, if they look Jew, shoot them. How do they know that the people that were in Israel are Jews? You don't know. It's not because of a look. There could be people that are there, and there were people that were there from other countries. There was 11 Americans there. That doesn't mean that they had to all have been Jewish. But the idea is the brainwashing that anybody who's in this area is this way. And that's what you've seen through COVID, right? Anybody in California is a COVID freak. That's not true. The biggest resistance of COVID has been California, right? Anybody who's in Florida is a Republican. Anybody in New York is just an idiot who is a liberal, who just has mommy and daddy's money, who can continue to live there. That isn't true, though. So they've created this total splitting up, and also you want to talk about like a CIA kind of way, or like a fucking crazy way to activate people into sleeper cells. Is the real sleeper cells are spiritual, good people that we like to think of starting to turn into their own fucking force against something that somebody wants to eradicate. And if it looks like this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Same thing goes with astrologers, or, you know, like, oh my God, that's fucking not from God. That's even demonized in what? Judaism, that's demonized in Christianity, it's demonized in Islam. Yeah. Right? So it's like, it creates that's what we're in right now. And I think a lot of people are so afraid of all these other things, but it's a much deeper issue. A lot of it was the vaccine stuff, so there's a COVID thing connected to it, you know? How do you hide a bunch of deaths?
Yeah.
How do you hide a 91% vaccinated country in deaths? Are those all the bodies that were from that thing? Because why did they find 250 bodies in one spot at that festival? Where there's 250 that just were at a hospital just that days prior that all had heart attacks, but now bullet holes in them. So it's like COVID, right? Like now you can't classify it as death as COVID. That was a new thing. Now it's like, well, there's obviously bullet holes through them, but were they dead prior? When you see bullet holes through somebody, you don't do the whole autopsy anymore. You don't do that as a coroner anymore, right? It's just like, yeah, there's bullets through them. Like, you don't check to see how hot they still are. You don't see how long ago they died from the bullet.
Well, maybe that has something to do with it then. Had you thought about that before, or did it just now come to you?
Oh, I've thought about that a lot.
Oh, I was going to say, maybe it'd be crazy if, like, you know, there's some kind of repercussions that are happening now because of all that. And tribunals are happening, and people are getting in trouble. People, you know, they're coming down on them. What if they said, oh, okay, well, we'll just cover all this up? Maybe. Because I asked you earlier off camera, like, why are they doing this? This is what I can't figure out. What's the point? I understand it's been going back and forth and this and that, and it's a religious war and whatnot, but like, what is the end goal? Like, why did they say, okay, next weekend we're going to go invade whatever, for what? Why?
Well, okay, so here's a good way. If people are so afraid of the WEF, if there's going to be one world order, that's pretty hard to do. You have to get everybody on the same fucking page.
Okay.
So what's the one thing that divides people is religion. So if the WEF is on it, who's going to take the one sacrifice? Israel, because they're kind of in the weird spot where they're Christians are cool with them, but there's also a huge disagreement. Muslims in the Islamic community hates it because that's the Holy Land that they hold. So you take a quick hit, we get the West to go against all the Muslims, and we take out as many Muslim nations, and now we're just left to these communist countries. You have to take out a majority of a religion, and the biggest religion is Christianity. So unfortunately, somebody has to take the hit, the first hit, right? It's kind of like have you ever seen Training Day?
I think so.
With Denzel when he's fucking when he's fucking young and he's fucking the cop who's the drug division, and he brings
Years ago,
Ethan Hawke in, and they do that whole setup thing to get the drug money. Where it's like, fucking, you walked in and you fucking take the hit, and so they fucking shoot him, and then they call in the whole thing, and then they have all the cash, and they act like he was dead. That's how you do it, right? So it's like, who's going to take the hit? Israel's like, we'll do it. We keep our Holy Land, all that. You keep it for now, but they don't say that. You keep that for now. But yeah, you get that. You take the hit, and then you get to go full out, and we have your back. You get to go full out. And right now, we are going to fully take out Hamas. That means the whole 2 million people that live in that Gaza Strip. And then they gave a 12-hour warning. If you live in the Gaza Strip, leave now, because we're going to decimate it. And that's what's happening right now, right? So what's going to be the next thing? America's arriving and all that. Where do they have to go next? Iran. Right? All right, Iran, you help fund it, blah, blah, blah. What are they going to do? Sanctions like Russia? Obviously, Russia's going to be our friend again, which I've been predicting forever, because they always were in World War II and all that stuff. Like this whole Ukraine thing, all the weapons have now been found in the hands of everybody in the Hamas. And they're praying to Allah saying, thank you, Ukraine, for selling us the weapons. So when you really look at it, it's like, what's the end goal? Get everything out of the way of who's ever. And if I were to ask anybody at the WEF what religion they were, I guarantee you they're going to be Christian or Jewish, right? So automatically, that's going to be the big push, is to push that and unite under one God, and the idea of that one God being through a westernized version of that one God. That's always going to be through the Bible and through and that's what major religions want. You look at the Christian doctrines, and to a lot of them, it's always about the Zion, whether it's in Jerusalem or whether it's now in America. That's what Mormons believe. You can look at all these Christian religions, and you can see how it always is all about where Zion is going to be. And so it's not about the way that you're being told in the anti-Semitism people out there about controlling the world in that way. It's way bigger than that. It's much more of like, because I feel like Israel doesn't even know like that they're being used in a moment too, right? Like, yeah, take the hit. We've got you. My biggest fear is in Israel is that they're going to try and move this all to one Christian world, right? So they take out both. They take out Israel and they take out the Middle East and all the Islamic. And then they go and get all those people. And it's a very Nazi idea, if you really think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. So yeah, it's very important during times like this to maintain a high vibration. And I mean, what would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to people who choose to remain high vibration? And you talked about during that live you did on Instagram about a mass meditation.
Yeah.
You know, what would be the worst case scenario in having as many light workers as possible mass meditate, keep a high vibration through all this bullshit, and actually literally see if we can come together? And if we can get everybody at a high vibration at the same time, you could literally change the course of the timelines of all the crazy shit that's going on throughout the world, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, but that would be like a deprogrammed meditation where it's not coming from we're all praying to Jesus Christ
yeah.
to help only the Israelites because of that. Like the whole point, I think, of like how to keep a high vibration is like when you start attaching it to a side in your spiritual place as like this is the good way only. Anybody in their route to God is a good person. There's always going to be the ruffians outside of that, right? Although we're dealing now in a world now where the governments that control the countries in Islam and in Christianity and in Judaism are all bad. It's not the people, right? It's the we know how to get our people to do whatever we want. It's like a business. It's like, what's the new product? Well, they've been doing with the typical traditional product. They need a more extreme product. They need an enemy now, a competitor. Wake them up. So it's about, I think, the light workers, and really, I think even the terminology will be something that we'll let go of, because it really is just about being a human at the end of the day. We're going to have to get to this human origin aspect. Yeah. And that's why nobody's thinking about at the same time, like, why are they throwing all the UAP shit in all of this? It's like, why were there no UAPs to blast those Palestinians out of the sky? Or why were there, right? Like, if there's all these aliens around, why are they not intervening in that? But they'll come around a American plane just doing a drill. But it's like they've said all these other things to come involved in some sort of way here. Yeah. And watch. You're already going to know it's going to be from the dark when they say that the aliens say that Christians are good and Muslims are bad. I'm already predicting it right now. The aliens are going to come and say that Muslims are bad, and they're the reptilians that are hidden in the desert. Yeah. And you know what? As a spiritual person, there's ways that you could say that, maybe the way they treat women, the way that they do all these things, right? So right now you're seeing this moral conversation starting to come about. And that's why I never trusted somebody like Andrew Tate, because the way he's trying to teach men to be is from an Islamic way, right? It's like women are supposed to be subservient, and, women in these countries can't even go buy their own goods. The man buys it. So the commercials are to the men for hair dye for a woman. Yeah. They're not even for a woman, like the man chooses at the end of the day. Like, no, I like your hair this color. And by the way, you better get your hijab out and fucking put that shit on. Yeah. When you get out. But when you get back in the house, you're allowed to do it. And I'm not going to say that people I've done readings for, but I've done readings for the highest of states in other countries that are in the Middle East. And what you see is most of the guys turn out to be gay. Did you know that the number one country of trans surgeries is Iran? Because in Iran, it's against the law to be gay. So they're not LGB. They're just TQ+. Because it's not against the religion to switch from a man to a woman or a woman to a man, because that's not gay.
Well, I mean, if you think about it.
That's where all this stuff is playing in.
I mean, if you think about it, though, over there, if they cover all the women up and you never see what a woman looks like, then how do you know if you're attracted to it? I think a lot of young people go through this period when they hit puberty. So those hormones start raging and you don't know where to direct it. And this is where sometimes I think sexual confusion comes in when you're young. You start getting those hormones and you're not sure where to direct it. You don't know. And then I don't know how it happened exactly, but I remember very specifically when I was a real young kid, those hormones raging, and then my brain just automatically went, titties.
Right.
I like that shit, but if you don't have that to look at, then where do you direct it?
So the story of Aladdin, it's the Sultan. He has Jasmine. She's allowed to just be in the castle. And then he has Jafar, who's his counsel. And suitors must come and prove their worth. And she's always, when she shows herself to meet him, you notice she's always covered in the movie. She doesn't show her full self, right? But when she even goes out in the street, she's covered too with Aladdin. That was all to show you how it works in Islam. Is like suitors are chosen by the father, the masculine, and the other men who throw around their daughters and make better positions. If you were in Saudi Arabia, for example, on your driver's license, it says your job, because that's the only job that you're allowed to have. So You can be a taxi driver, or you can work at a factory. Like, this is what it is, and it's on your driver's license. You need a couple options. It's not like you have the freedom to go create a big business and an oil. You have to be part of the royal lineage or friends of the royal family, right? And the princes.
Wow.
Right? It's not like you just go live a free life in Saudi Arabia and say, I'm going to go start an LLC and I'm going to go do tarot cards and I'm going to just go kill it. No. You have 2 jobs and you can pick which one. It goes on your driver's license.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But, many people, again, are so in the dark with all this stuff. And that's what's really weird, is that you have, of course, what looks so bad. But then if you try to go to the other side and look what's bad, right? That there's another side doing the indoctrination the same way. If you have a Christian, what is it? Oh, at church, I met a family and their son and that other one, that daughter, I know they're both Christian. You shouldn't go hang out with any of these other boys or any of the other girls. They're in our church. So
yeah.
And da-da-da-da-da. So the indoctrination's done it in the same way, just different. And dad's making the same handshake, just in different clothes and in a different way, and still doing the same business deal.
This is why I don't dig the fucking Earth game, man. Well, I don't dig it here, man. All the shit the fucking humans do. I just think the whole damn human game is so fucking stupid. When are we going to get out of this? That's my thought about it. All this goofy ass, silly shit games that humans come here and create. I don't see how the hell anybody has fun playing any of those games. I wish we could just fucking ascend up out of this and get to the next fucking level. You know what I'm saying? That's what that makes me think. I'm like, fuck.
I mean, at the end of the age of Aries into Pisces, at the beginning of it, was basically the beginning of the Christ times, right? So you have Rome and you have this huge power structure and its idea of the Olympian gods that have shifted, and also this idea that runs through, right? Whether that was actually instilled on purpose, because ironically it's the Romans that move into the Catholic Church over the next 1,000 years, and through the Justinian aspects and so forth, and of course creating the Christian doctrine, which was all originally Roman, not priests, but magi converted to Christian priests under Constantine in 325. That it's just the same story that keeps going, and they re-identify and use the Pisces transit to re-go through. So how does it end? The end of all these religions. Without fighting, without killing, without indoctrinating your own kids. It might not take a lot, right? It's the opposite of what like genocide is, right? Where they like try to wipe out populations and they try to wipe out, groups of people. It's about you being a good human being and being like, what if I were to not listen to the outside world's perspective of how to make and live and look and what is God and divine? It was in front of your face the whole time. It was up in the stars. It was in the energies that you have in exchange with love and friends. I mean, I'm a DJ, so a million festivals I've been to in my life. So again, they've been coming after the festivals lately too. They don't want people to congregate. So of course, this is another big thing that happened in Israel, where they find 250 of the bodies. Like, they keep forgetting about all the people in their homes that were killed and all that shit, but they keep focusing on this festival. They don't want people to congregate from all types of the world, because it was so many countries that were at that festival and so many types of people. They all weren't people that were Jewish or from Israel. And so what do? They made it out to where congregation of all people of all types, and finding a way to come together under music and art and happiness and true light work and spirituality, and erasing those lines, right? Because that's what happens at a festival. Like, if you're a Christian and I'm a Jew and you're somebody from Islam, it doesn't matter. We're all dancing to the same music, we're having a good time, and guaranteed you'll still make out with somebody that if you're single and you're attracted, because it doesn't matter your religion. You're not going to start going, oh my God, I'm not going to fall in love with you because our religions don't match.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to get rid of right now.
Well, that's what we got to try to push for. And we got to try to do it in a way that's never been done before. That's my whole outlook on everything, because, when it comes to almost any form of trying to help people awaken and expand their consciousness throughout the generations of light workers who have been coming in here since the first fucking wave. They've been trying to explain it using the same repeated phrases and buzzwords and whatnot. And I don't think it's working. It's getting to the point to where it's going in one ear and out the other. So how do we get people to understand, to come together and unite as one? How do we make it make sense?
I think we just did, right? Like, I think like part of it is like these combos aren't being had, number one.
Yeah.
The first wave did their job. I mean, they had to, I mean, if you think about in the 60s, like to go and say, I'm not going to be a Catholic or a Christian in America, and I'm going to be a spiritual person, and I'm going to, you know, team with Timothy Leary and say, tune in and fucking drop out of the fucking system. And that, you know, I'm going to experiment with psychedelics, and I'm going to go be free, and I'm going to go be a flower child, and I'm going to go hang out with the fucking flowers, was a fucking huge leap in humanity. We're that second wave now, where the wave and the set has reached us. And it's like, now it's our turn on how we do the same thing against all this shit. Right?
Yeah.
Because right now they're trying to, this is so easy because everybody, they did the COVID thing on top to get everybody who's left to feel like they have nowhere left to go, get the economy so bad, get all the shit to where it's like, well, I guess I'll be part of it. I mean, what happened in World War II? The women ran America. They made the bullets. They made the tanks. They made everything. And the men were all, 12 million men got drafted and got sent away. And of course, that was in the 40s. So it wasn't like 330 million Americans now. Right? So it's like, back then it was a lot less. So, you know, you had way more than 10% of the population in war on the other side. And then what was here? The men who were too old, and they were like the managers, and they managed 300 women at a factory. All the post office were all women, and all the tanks and all the bullets and everything was made. And Ford turned into a tank factory, and so did Chrysler. And so, right. And it was all women though. So like, do we want to go into that system? Like, think about right now in Israel, every man at 18 has to join the military. Every man now is a reservist. So all the reservists got called up. That means the economy in Israel is gone at the moment, right? Until they figure that out over the next month, with the women having to take over and all the men are going to be at war. So it's already happening in front of your face, but most people are in such denial. They're just still like, oh yeah, what's on my TikTok today? And I'm just going to keep going through this fucking endless fucking tunnel. You know, without like, are you going to get out of the tunnel? I think it's about showing people to get out of the tunnel. The same way that a hippie got out of like the whole 1960s and being a whiskey drinking, you know, tie wearing fucking corporate, like, yeah, you must live this way and you must do this and get angry and beat your wife and yell at your kids for listening to Led Zeppelin. Like, this is at times infinity now, you know, now it's like, holy shit, like, I can't believe that you're fucking against all of it. Look at the atrocities happening over here. It's like, what do you mean? I'm trying to get rid of the atrocities happening from the people that are causing the atrocities by not conforming to being in that whole fucking program. It's the same thing. It's always about deprogramming. And this is a higher level of deprogramming. The first wave got us here. The second wave, it's going to take people to have to, you know, a lot of people, I think it's harder unless you were young like you and I and fucking went against the system young. Yeah. And went on your own journey and really broke through so many of the barriers and aren't stuck into this insurance based, this based, that based, you know, 9 to 5, college, educated, blah, 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 right? Like it becomes almost like the feeling of impossibility, and then the strength to already be homeless in life or to not give a fuck is already something that has to be ingrained with you. I think it's about helping people with that without tearing their soul, right? We got to be still. I've always got the vision of us are just going to be one day at a place where everybody's going to be arriving on boats, and it's just like, yeah, come on, just helping them off that fucking burning and falling timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, eventually we're going to get to a point where the old system of wake up in the morning and force yourself to do something that you fucking hate just to barely be able to survive is going to be gone. 20 years from now, I hold a firm belief. I mean, I didn't make this up in my head. I've heard a lot of evidence alluding to this being the plan eventually, on the good side, is that the majority of the bullshit jobs that people are doing right now just to barely be able to survive are all going to be taken over by AI, robots. If a human works a job, it's going to be either A, something that they love, and or a service to humanity. Money is going to be so pointless that we don't even need to talk about it. We don't work for that. Work for money. Like, that whole system is going bye-bye. So we're going into a phase right now where we're seeing the collapse of the old system. Eyes are opening. And like you said, there's going to be layers to that. It's going to be painful layers of all these Band-Aids being peeled off. And then re-educating humanity to really understand the truth of our true essence and what we're really doing here. And it has nothing to do with people thinking that their number one purpose in life is to go to school and get good grades so they can go to college and get a degree and buy a house and have children and be in debt for the rest of your life. And that brainwashing, it's going to take a while to undo that.
Well, it's weird because before World War II in America, right, it was a Great Depression. It was the changing of the financial system. But it was also in the middle of America were farms. And so if you were in the middle of America, it wasn't suburbia. There was no homes. And if you lived in a city, they were buildings that were built in the 1800s and you were living like squalor in there and you were just trying to make it. But that was all it was. Right after World War II, what happens in America? The new big boom. Suburban America and this whole system that we now call today the American system, right? Mm-hmm. What's going to happen first in their eyes? A war to get rid of a bunch of people so there are places for robots. Right? Yeah. And there's going to be the robot revolution and that idea. So I think that the other lightworker call is like, this is red alert. This is not something to, of course, just try and push to the side. It's about how are you going to not feed in your thoughts? Because even like giving away so much of your energy to this, as far as like, gosh, I hope this side wins and I hope they stop that and I hope they stop this because of that. That's how they do it. Right, and that's what justifies the ability. That's why the Catholic Church sent from every country, because it was the Pope that was in charge of all the kings, right? That got all these countries, men to come together and knights to form this idea of you're going to the Holy Land, you're going to go kill all those Muslims, and you're going to hold the territory for 100+ years. And what did the Knights Templar find there? Other shit. This Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th from the killing of all those Knight Templars once they had figured out in Jerusalem whatever they found and took. So that's what the irony is. Like, is Jerusalem actually the spot of the Holy Land, or what was taken of the Holy Land was taken from the Knights Templar and brought to the Catholic Church? That's the big question. You know, so people think, oh, this is the Holy Land, but, you know, it's again, like, is it a land? Like, you know, why were the Knights Templar killed? And ironically, this Friday the 13th is no coincidence to what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's all planned out. That's another thing I was saying today. I put that post on my Instagram that I'm a firm believer in, I don't know, it's so hard to say because I don't want to tell people stick your head in the sand and pretend nothing bad is happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how do you acknowledge the light and the dark? You acknowledge the dark. You know it's there. You know it exists. But maintaining, at least, if you can't maintain a high vibration, at least maintain vibrational integrity. And don't give your energy to that. And you know what I'm saying? That's your superpower in these times. When they try to drop some bait in the pond, some drama, some conflict, some bullshit. And everybody's biting at it like a bunch of fucking piranhas on a goddamn chicken. You know what I'm saying? to not be one of those fucking piranhas. No, I'm not biting on that chicken carcass. I'm not. I'm gonna hang out over here. I'm aware that it's there. I'm aware there's some bullshit going on over there. It's cool. I'm ready. I'm prepared. The best that I can be. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna live in fear. If the worst case scenario happens, then all right, whatever, then it happens. If everything crashes and, you know, I end up having to live out of my camper with my pickup truck and, you know, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is like Jordan Maxwell used to say, the news is the north, east, west, and south for you to gauge where things are going. And wherever in lightworker terminology, light is information, darkness has no information. So it's in the areas when you're seeing the information, where's the darkness? Like why isn't there info in this area? That's where the shadow is. And it's through the news that you actually find your way through to where if you do end up in a camper, you actually made it to be in the camper because you paid attention and you saw the holes instead of just being blind and trying to fully disconnect.
Yeah.
The Jordan Maxwell way would be like the news is the northeast, west, and south. And that's your gauge. So for me, how I've been able to gauge as an astrologer, same way if you were stuck in the middle of the ocean, guess what? You would have to use the planets. You couldn't just be like, oh, I'll manifest my way through this. No, I'd have to find the North Star and I'd have to know, am I going into Antarctica right now? Where am I going? I want warm water. I want this. We're not going towards that North Star right now. I want to go south. I'm going opposite. Or if I want to go west. Or if or even paying attention to what's happening in the world is the same way that we have to pay attention as a tarot reader, right? If there's a horrible combobulated piranha situation in somebody's life, we got to use the light work to figure it out. It might not be fully answered. That person's going to have to do the work themselves. The same way as a light worker, it's like, here's information and you do it yourself. There is no, kind of religious, like you must do this or you must, do any of that stuff, so.
Tough times, man. Crazy fucking world we're living in.
But like I said again, if the UFOs say that Christianity's right and Islam is bad, or vice versa, then that's not the light.
Yeah, fuck that. That's really the biggest thing that I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on them to bust out the fucking aliens. Big hologram of a UFO up in the sky. That's the big thing I've been waiting on. Because they're going to pull that eventually. Playing around with that little paper mache alien. They've been talking for how many months about how aliens are real now. Oh, it's coming. That's what I'm waiting on. And yeah, they probably will come out and say, oh, Jesus Christ. But then again, wait a minute. But then again, what would the Christians think? Because they don't believe in aliens, right? So if
they do, if they put up a picture of the same Jesus that's seen across the world that is not even the true representation of Jesus.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that.
The whitewashed version.
Yeah.
They throw up that, right? Like, but again, you have to remember that Christians are very deep into the Old Testament too, as much as the New Testament, right? So when it hits Israel, it hits all those Old Testament values and all those, and so there's a connection there. So if anything, if the aliens were to come out with any holographic, it would be next to an F-35 Israeli and a American F-35, right? Of two UAPs on that side of it and saying that that's the side of good that they're on. But again, with the UFOs being on a side of picking a side with humans against another side that's bad, that's been the COVID narrative that's been building in the Q community to all this stuff. And that's kind of the scary part because that's exactly what Hitler did. It's like, no, it's these people who are bad and they need to be eradicated and they need to be taken out and And so that creates the same Nazi narrative of why the SS was created and what happened, and then funneled everybody into a system that they thought was going to be about freedom and we were going to not have to deal with all this. But the way we weren't going to have to deal with it is I'm going to have to sign up and be supportive of killing of human beings and putting people through concentration camps and even taking, and then everybody has to follow this one way, and all the women must get trained to be a Nazi woman, and all the kids need to be going through schools that the Nazis are not just training about history in their version, but also how to be an SS. So, like that's where that's where it's like all these like this is the way and this is right, and all these what I hate in this Q community right now is all these people that are like just showing their feet, won't show their face, which already they're stupid because the CIA is just smart. They can just tell by imaging what apartment you're in or where you're at, and they already know where your phone. And they're trying to act like they know something that's going on, but they won't show their face. That's already dark. It's not information. We need to hide yourself and cloak yourself. That they're probably being paid by the same people who are doing the bad shit that they're saying to get rid of. Like that Juanito guy, I don't trust one thing that comes out of his mouth on Nino's channel. And so many people follow it. So many people believe him.
I haven't followed any of that in so long.
So many people. It's scary.
Once,
and I don't think Nino's a bad guy. I think he's a good guy, but he also at the same time, that's how he makes his living. Is it's not about what he's saying. It's about when can we get this random guy who happens to, we have no idea who he is, but so for some reason he's working with Q and he's working with the people that are in the know and the white hats, and he's the ultimate white hat knower.
Yeah.
He's one of the agents that gets to talk about it, but can't show his face.
Are you talking about that dude that just babbles and
He just babbles and he always shows his feet, his boots.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I would try to listen to that dude, man, and he would, like, you would ask him a question, you know. So what? Tell us about what Trump said yesterday. Oh, well, first Trump said this, but hang on, I got to explain this real quick. And he would run off for an hour babbling about some shit that's like, dude, just answer the fucking question. And I couldn't follow that guy. So I know who you're talking about. 107?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I don't claim to know. I don't know whether that's an honest source or not. All I know is every time I've tried to follow and listen to what he has to say, I couldn't follow any of it because he would dart off in all these different directions and never get to the fucking point. So I could just never follow him.
Well, anything malefic is always going to not reveal itself, right? It's like Snow White, right? It's like the evil queen. She's going to portray herself how she wants to be portrayed, as an old woman who's there to help Snow White and give her an apple. So Juanito is acting benefic, yet anything but, because he would just show his face and have the courage to show it. But he's too high up to show it. That there's never any good in that, right? That's like being a Navy SEAL. Like, I can't show myself in this because we're gonna go do this situation. What are you doing? Oh, I have to go kill all these people. Whenever you're dealing with people who won't show their face, it's like all the people on the so many people in this world today. They won't show their picture. They want to, say that they're this and that, or then they create their own superhero in their head of a cat that they can't find their own identity and self. And Juanito 7, and then he's taking claim that he claimed he knew it would happen on 10/7 because 107, and then you have to remember 007 came from John D, and it came from him being the first one that was working with Queen Elizabeth I. So it's actually John D's 007. But, like, again, that goes into James Bond and that goes into all those things, but it goes into much deeper than that, esoterically speaking. And Juanito knows nothing about any of that. You can tell because he won't talk about any of that. All he talks about is like, well, all I can tell you is about China. Don't you see why and then it's just like, And again, he's a nice maze that doesn't have a door out.
Yeah.
And then you have to listen to him through Nino only. They have to pay a membership for it to listen to this guy who has no basis, won't show his face, and is telling you to just trust his way. And the white hats are doing this now, and then they're doing that, and then they're doing this. And it's just like, that sounds exactly like Hitler and what they were doing when the SS... The whole the Nazi Socialist Party, you know what it had to do? It had to go up into multiple elections and lose, because there would be 9 parties, until Hitler finally got so upset at a point to where he was able to convince them to bring it down to like a 3-party, and he didn't even win the popular vote. But because the Kaisers at the time, the old guard, didn't want to deal with this guy who got so much attention, that they let him become the vice chancellor because his party got second place. But he lost so many elections, that party. And that's when, the chancellor dies, Hitler takes over, the insurrection that he creates on himself blows up the fucking building. The chancellor dies, then he calls himself the Fuhrer and doesn't hire a vice chancellor and creates a whole new society. That's exactly what the Q movement is trying to do right now. Nazis.
Yeah, I haven't followed any of that, and so
it's Nazism at its highest. Like, this whole Q.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, once you develop a true connection with the divine, you don't need to follow any of that. It becomes kind of pointless. To me, I don't really know how to put the words behind it to adequately explain the trust, and I'm not saying trusting this, that, and the third. I'm saying like just trusting the whole big divine plan.
Yes, correct.
From a big, huge, universal perspective. And following all that, you can get lost down so many mazes and trap doors, and so many of them have even admitted to being used to spread misinformation to distract you. So it's like, okay, well, that's the same fucking thing the bad side does. So why would I follow you if you're admitting you're doing that on the good side? Because they'll say, oh, yeah, well, they spread this misinformation to distract you here so they could do this. So you're doing the same thing the dark side does, and you're admitting it. I'm not following that.
No, I mean, it's the same thing in Christianity, right? Like, follow this Christian way, and it will all be done. That's what Hitler said, right? Like, look at all these people who are not doing Christian things, like the Jews, that they win, right? Or that's the same way in Islamic terrorism, right? It's like nobody's following Allah, and in the Quran, it literally states you're allowed to lie to anybody who is not Islamic. That Muhammad will not, you will be okay, and you will end up in paradise because you're allowed to lie to somebody who doesn't believe in the faith. In extreme Islamic views, again, there's different viewpoints. Not every person who's part of Islam looks at it that way, but it's in there that you are allowed to lie to a non-Islamic person. Full stop in every way. Because they are not credible as a human being or soul. Same way that a Christian does, you don't believe in Christ, so you're not going to heaven.
Yeah.
So now you see Juanito and all these people, and then you see everybody what's happening in Hamas going against people in Israel, and it's all the same shit. Inverse it, and 70% of Americans that are Christian don't want to look in the mirror and see that they're looking like a terrorist themselves. Those people, they don't believe in Jesus. Same way that people in Hamas are like, I can't believe these people don't believe in Allah, in Muhammad. So that's where as a light worker, you go, okay, I think I'm out of that whole baseball park game, teams, league. Don't want to get involved. You know? Mm-hmm. It's not like as light workers are saying like, these people are all bad. You know, like this group of people, you know, and that's where anti-Semitism in this community is bad, because like somebody like Kanye is an idiot because he attaches it all to, well, you know, controls the world is the banks and all the Jews, right? Or then somebody else might say it's just everybody in Islam. It's like, that's anti-Semitism too, but that anti-Semitism doesn't get hit because of what we've seen over the last 20 years. And even before that with Iran-Contra, the fact that there's hostages right now brings us right back to the same hostage situation we had prior. And people aren't even talking about that. And there's Americans involved. So this is how you dribble in and get everybody to bite. You know?
Yeah, I think it'll work itself out eventually. It can be a pain in the ass, but...
Actually, I just got it, and this was a download. In Jaws, what's the problem? A big shark is eating people on the beach. So what do people do? I want to go get into the boat and get Jaws, right? So Richard Dreyfuss, I'm going to get in that boat. Who's the best angler? This fucking old captain. The mayor in the town's a little bitch, right? They get on the boat, and they go chasing after Jaws by pouring blood in the water. By the time Jaws gets to the boat, he eats and devours half the boat. And what do they say? I think you're going to need a bigger boat. And they get to where they're all the way in the water and almost done. Is it worth all that? So right now, as a spiritual person, are you really going to go chase Jaws right now? Are you really going to go and think that everything's going the way I want to and da-da-da-da? You're going to get in that boat and be singing and throwing up and fucking having Jaws eat half the boat? Did that solve the problem? No, because there was Jaws 2 and Jaws 3. And you know what I mean? Like,
some of them will.
You know,
some of them will.
That's where, you know, you're Gilligan's Island at that point, and you're just chilling out.
Yeah.
And you're not, and on Gilligan's Island, they're not looking around at who's a Muslim, who's a Jew, and who's fucking Christian. They're finding a way to come together and figure out how to make it through.
Yeah, if we could just do that with the quickness, we wouldn't have to go through any crazy shit. If we could figure out how to do it real quick. If you know, like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. But if it did, in la magical fairy tale land, if everybody woke up and opened their eyes, we wouldn't have to go through any of this crazy shit. It would be over. The whole game would be over. But that's not the way the humans want to play the game, so.
No. So I'm glad that we did this talk, though. It was weird because we actually kind of already had manifested it last week. We were like, we don't have to just talk about the cards. And then boom, this happens. And it's like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been wanting to do that for a while.
Yeah.
Pick out something that needs to be talked about. That's what I make it such a strong point to do. You know, just doing this with flipping tarot cards and talking about energies and whatnot is figuring out how to get people to take these spiritual practices and these principles and relate them to their everyday life and some of the things that are happening in the world. And that, I think, is going to accelerate the awakening process, you know?
Yeah, and I think if we just use the most current history of the last 20 years, like I'm thinking of festival life. Like when you're at a festival, a spiritual festival, there is no what religion are you, what do you look like, any of that, right? But now we're at a territory where now people are going to go to a festival and they're going to be like, you look like you could be a terrorist. But the funny thing is at a festival, there's always bad shit happening in a festival. There's always the drunk guy who is already in bad relations with his girlfriend and he's on drugs and she's starting to already told him like, we're not in a relationship anymore, but we'll go to the thing together. And then she's already got another guy that she's talking to there. And then what happens? He's the crazy guy that starts to lose it and take it out on other people, subjectively or unsubjectively, prior and during his craziness. I've seen it all the time. Mm-hmm. And so we always look at the outside of what's coming in and being so afraid, yet we're not ever looking around at like the terrorism that's happening within our own circles of people who just can't be a good, decent human being. You know? And that's what's going to happen is imagine, I don't know if you remember, but walking is anybody who is, I have so many friends from Iran and all parts of the Middle East. They were terrified from 2004 through probably all the way up until just even now, probably even more. Right? Because it's like people were propagated on the media to look at them as the bad thing. And then you're seeing Israelis being in such a horrible place and Jews, you know why? Because guess what? There's been plenty of backlash on the other side in social media saying that they're the problem and they're the controllers of the world and all that shit, the same way the Nazis did. That's scary shit.
Yeah. We'll get through it though.
You know, but again, Mike Pence is a good human being and he's the perfect person and all the people that are Christians are the only ones to listen to. That's going to be the narrative. So that's one of my big warnings. Scary.
Yeah. Be all right.
All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. And are you still doing your mini reading sale?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I've made the decision looking at the fucking state of the economy and the world and whatnot. And I've been getting all these emails of people saying, I've been saving up for a reading. And I'm like, oh my God, saving up. That's how bad it's getting. $7 a gallon for gas, $300 more for like groceries every trip. People are saving up. Fucking shit pisses me off. So I'm like, no, you know what? While all these other businesses out here are jacking their prices through the roof, I'm going to start cutting mine down. We have to go through and look at the numbers to make sure, you know, how we can do it so that, you know, it's a win-win, you know, a win for you, a win for me. And I put the mini readings back on my list and I cut $10 off of them. So $40 fucking readings. And it's going to continue throughout the rest of this year. And depending on what things look like come January, I might shave all my prices down as low as I possibly can. Because, you know, this, at the end of the day, this is about helping people. It's about the mission. It's about the work, you know, so. Yep, $40 mini readings.
That's why I kept High Vibe subscription at $10.99. I haven't changed it. My accountants last week told me to change it, that I'm losing money, but I'm like, no, people are not. $10 is a lot of money to people now. Mm-hmm. And so, or that's why I offered the premium subscription with all the schools and special events and all these extra things for the $50 a month, where it's like you get all the content the whole month. And you get schools, and you get to talk with me in the schools, and you get the private group, and you get all the content, and you get all the high vibers, and you get all of it. And you get access to the big event I'm doing on Friday. Like, you know, it's like every way that we can find a way to help people right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can't believe, because you go onto some of these guys' Patreons and shit in this field, they're charging like $30 a month, and they give you like one video a week.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah. It's fucking
It's like
nuts.
it's fucking. It's like ooh, a new moon, or even, you know, some people are on OnlyFans now doing.
Yeah.
And they put a couple videos up. It's not
Yeah.
like they're, you know, that's it. So you're paying your $15-20 for 3 videos,
Yeah.
4 videos. Like, it's just atrocious. It's horrible.
Yeah, those are the people that are going to fall off next year.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, adios. Stay high vibe.